Reading through the Bible in 1 year, August 2nd, Judges 19, Psalm 136 through 137, Jeremiah 25, 15 through 38, and Psalm 18. So if I were the kind of person to give a trigger warning, this is where it would be. But I'm not, because this is scripture. And you need to understand the reason why these things are listed. Remember how I said in the very beginning that the book of Judges gets bad and it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. My Bible's around here somewhere, and I mark off the way that I do my color coding when I do notes is the stuff that God says or God commands or goes along with the message that God's giving is in blue, and when man does something, usually to his own hurt, that's in red. Well, pink, because red, it's hard to read through red. The last half of this book gets increasingly red, and these last chapters are basically just red. That's all it is. There is very little redeemable out of this whole section, except to, and again, the reason why Judges exists as a book is so that we can see what happens when man is left to himself. When God allows people to pursue their own heart. I mean, that's the recurring theme here. There is no king in Israel, right? Their king, in a theonomy standpoint, is God. God has been their king the whole time, but they refuse to listen to God. They refuse to listen to the prophets. They refuse to listen to the priests. And even the priests that they have, like this Levite, are terrible priests. And we've seen that over and over and over again. So what we see right here is this continuing story. And it just keeps getting worse. And your heart breaks for these people as you see what they're doing to themselves over and over and over again. Yet here we are. So, as much as I don't want to do this, I'm not kidding. I really don't like this book. I love the Bible. I love it dearly, but this one is very hard for me to get through because of the content as we get into these last chapters. So let's just get cracking. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and a certain Levite, likely the same Levite from before, the one who was pursuing his own glory, right? Remember, this is a Levitical priest of the priestly order that God put in place to serve him to his glory for the protection and care of the people of Israel. Right? So this certain Levite was sojourning in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, who took to himself a concubine. Concubines are, well, here, let me read the note on this. So a concubine is a female servant or slave regarded as part of the family. Her usual function was childbearing to enlarge the family, right? So she is a slave who is allowed into the marriage bed so that she can grow the family. Put another way, you could put it as a sex slave. She's not granted the same levels as everybody else, but if you no longer desire her, not like she is a slave and she's used for sex. That's true. She's also used for raising the children, that kind of thing. She has higher status than other slaves, but she is still not somebody who is going to be, what's a good way to put this? She doesn't attain to the same level as his wife would, if that makes any sense at all. It's kind of a thing. David had concubines. I think David had a concubine. I know for a fact Solomon did. Solomon had a lot of concubines. It was kind of his thing. But Yeah, we'll get through that later on. We're going to come to that. So there are good kings who had concubines. It wasn't just this evil Levite who had them. It was a thing that happened in that time, so it was very common in that era. And basically, as a concubine, you have a higher status within the family, which also affords you more things. Anyway, let's go on. So he took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah, and his concubine was unfaithful to him. Doesn't mean she was sleeping around on him, but possibly. So the law demands the stoning. There's a note right here of adulterers in Deuteronomy 22:22, but the people are not following the law. Again, why? Because there's no king in Israel, and the people are doing whatever they feel like. So she was unfaithful to him, and she went away from him to her father's house in Bethlehem at Judah, and she was there for some 4 months. Now, this unfaithful line, that could just mean that she was unfaithful to staying with him. Maybe she didn't like him. Maybe she was afraid of him. Maybe there was something else going on there. This is a brief door opening up so we get a little bit more information as to what's happening. But the unfaithfulness could also just be her running away. So, though the implication is that she was sleeping with somebody else, which if that was the case, again, the law demands that she be stoned for it. Not only her, but also the guy that she was sleeping with. Then her husband rose. Now, see, he's the Levite, right? But he is like a husband to her, and she is like a wife to him. So he rose and went after her to speak kindly to her and bring her back. For he had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys. And she brought him into her father's house. And when the girl's father saw him, he came with joy to meet him. And his father-in-law and the girl's father made him stay. His father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay. And he remained with them 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. And on the 4th day, they arose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and after that you may go." So the two of them sat and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, be pleased to spend the night, and let your heart be merry. Basically, let's just get drunk, right? And when the man rose to go up, his father-in-law pressed him till he spent the night there again. And on the 5th day, he arose early in the morning to depart. And the girl's father said, "Strengthen your heart and wait till the day declines." So they ate, both of them. And the man and his concubine and his servant rose, and his father-in-law. The girl's father said to him, "Behold, now the day is waning toward the evening. Please spend the night. Behold, the day draws to its close. Lodge here, and let your heart be merry. Tomorrow you shall arise early in the morning for your journey and go home." But the man would not spend the night. He rose and departed, and arrived opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. He had with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and his concubine was with him. And when they were near Jebus, the day was nearly over, and the servant said to his master, "Come now, let us turn aside to the city of the Jebusites and spend the night in it." But his master said to him, "We will not turn aside to the city of foreigners, who do not belong to the people of Israel, but we will pass on to Gibeah." And he said to his young man, "Come, let us draw near to one of these places and spend the night at Gibeah or at Ramah." So they passed on and went their way. And the sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. So they turned aside and went there to go in and spend the night at Gibeah. And he went in and sat down in the open square of the city, for no one took them into his house to spend the night. That's something that people typically did. When you saw somebody traveling, you would find the people in the over by the gate, and you would bring them into your home. Right? That's a standard thing to do. And behold, an old man was coming in from his work in the field at evening, and the man was from the hill country of Ephraim. He was sojourning in Gibeah. The men of the place were Benjaminites, and he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going? And where do you come from?" And he said to him, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, from which I come. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to the house of the Lord, but no one has taken me into his house. We have straw and feed for our donkeys, with bread and wine for me and for your female servant. And the young man with your servants, there is no lack of anything. Basically saying we have everything we need to take care of ourselves. Can we just have a place to stay? So the old man said, peace be to you. I will care for all your wants. Only do not spend the night in the square. So he brought him into his house and gave the donkeys feed. They washed their feet and they ate and drank. As they were making their hearts merry, as they were drinking, behold, the men of the city, worthless fellows, surrounded the house, beating on the door. And they said to the old man, the master of the house, bring out the man who came into your house that we may know him. They wanted to rape him. And the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, no, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Since this man has come into my house, do not do this vile thing. Behold, here are my virgin daughter and his concubine. Let me bring them out now. Violate them to do with them what seems good to you. But against this man, do not do this outrageous thing. But the men would not listen to him. So the man seized his concubine. This is the Levite, the priest, the man of God, seized his concubine and shoved her out the door, slammed it and locked the door. And they knew her. They raped her and abused her all night until the morning. And as dawn began to break, they let her go. And as morning appeared, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was until it was light. Then her master rose up in the morning. When he opened the doors of the house, he went out to go on his way, and behold, there was his concubine, legally his wife, lying at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. Remember, this is the guy who's supposed to take care of her, who's supposed to maintain her for her good and for his good. Right? Her hands are on the threshold. She just wanted to be safe with him, and he threw her outside until she was raped to death. And he said to her, get up, let us be going. But there was no answer. Then he put her on the donkey, and the man rose up and went away into his home. When he entered his house, he took a knife, and taking hold of his concubine, he divided her limb by limb into 12 pieces and sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. And all who saw it said, such a thing has never happened or been seen from the day that the people of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt until this day. Consider it, take counsel, and speak. He's saying, basically, look at what has happened, right? So the 12 pieces, it is often assumed that the Levite divided the concubine in 12 parts and then sends one piece to each tribe to draw attention to Benjamin's horrific deed in Gibeah. However, the text says that he sends her throughout all the land of Israel. That is, her whole body cut up into 12 pieces. It is thus to be a symbol to anyone who sees it that Israel is not one entity, but is acting as a divided body. The original audience of Judges was well aware of how Saul later cut up the oxen into 12 parts in order to summon Israel to fight against the Ammonites. And the line here, such a thing, refers to the grotesque use of the woman's body. This line here, such a thing, that he took his wife and cut her into pieces like a common animal to send a message. The downward ethical and spiritual spiral of Israel is accentuated by this statement. I'm telling you, I do not like this book. It has a lot to say. It's very hard for me to get through. All right, now Psalm 136 through 137. Yes! I love this one. My son, not so much. All right, so Psalm 136. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who alone does great wonders, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who by understanding made the heavens, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who spread out the earth above the waters, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who made the great lights, for his steadfast love endures forever. The sun to rule over the day, for his steadfast love endures forever. And the moon and the stars to rule over the night, for his steadfast love endures forever. This first section, right here. Well, this first one up here declares God as the king and ruler, the sovereign Lord of all. The second one declares God as a creator. To him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt, for his steadfast love endures forever, and brought Israel out from among them, for his steadfast love endures forever. And with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who divided the Red Sea in two, for his steadfast love endures forever, and made Israel pass through the midst of it, for his steadfast love endures forever. But overthrew Pharaoh and his host in the Red Sea, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who led the people through the wilderness, for his steadfast love endures forever. Here he is the God and King of Israel, the creator of Israel and the sustainer of Israel. To him who struck down great kings, for his steadfast love endures forever, and killed mighty kings, for his steadfast love endures forever. Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his steadfast love endures forever, and Og, king of Bashan, for his steadfast love endures forever. And gave their land as heritage, for his steadfast love endures forever. A heritage to Israel, his servant, for his steadfast love endures forever. This section shows him as the God who granted to Israel their land and was the one who fought for them to give it to them. It is he who remembered us in our low estate, for his steadfast love endures forever, and rescued us from all our foes. For his steadfast love endures forever. He who gives food to all flesh, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of heaven, for his steadfast love endures forever. Now Psalm 137. By the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept. When we remembered Zion, on the willows there we hung up our lyres. For there our captors required of us songs, and our tormentors mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. Remember, O Lord, against the Edomites, in the day of Jerusalem, how they said, lay it bare, down to its foundations. O daughter of Babylon, doomed to be destroyed. Blessed shall he be who repays you with what you have done to us. Blessed shall he be who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rock. Now Jeremiah 25, 15 through 38. Thus the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me, Take from my hand this cup of the wine of wrath, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink it. They shall drink and stagger and be crazed because of the sword that I am sending among them. So I took the cup from the Lord's hand, and I made all the nations to whom the Lord sent me drink it. Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, its kings and officials, to make them a desolation and a waste, a hissing and a curse. As at this day, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, his servants, his officials, all his people, and all the mixed tribes among them, all the kings of the land of Uz, and all the kings of the land of the Philistines, Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, the remnant of Ashdod, Edom, Moab, and the sons of Ammon, the kings of Tyre, all the kings of Tyre, all the kings of Sidon, and the kings across the coastlands, and the kings of the coastlands across the sea, Dedan, Tema, Buz, and all who cut the corners of their hair, all the kings of Arabia, and the kings of the mixed tribes who dwell in the desert, all the kings of Zimri, all the kings of Elam, all the kings of Media, all the kings of the north, far and near, one after another, and all the kings of the world that are on the face of the earth. And after them, the king of Babylon shall drink. Then you shall say to them, Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Drink, be drunk and vomit, fall and rise no more, because of the sword that I am sending among you. And if you refuse to accept the cup from your hand to drink, then you shall say to them, or rather, if they refuse to take it, Thus says the Lord of hosts, you must drink. For behold, I began to work disaster at the city that is called by my name. And and shall you go unpunished? You shall not go unpunished, for I am summoning a sword against all the inhabitants of the earth, declares the Lord of hosts. You, therefore, shall prophesy against them all these words, and say to them, The Lord will roar from on high, and from his holy habitation utter his voice. He will roar mightily against his fold, and shout like those who tread grapes, against all the inhabitants of the earth. The clamor will resound to the ends of the earth, for the Lord has an indictment against the nations. He is entering into judgment with all flesh, and the wicked he will put to the sword, declares the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, Behold, disaster is going forth from nation to nation, and a great tempest is stirring from the farthest parts of the earth. And those pierced by the Lord on that day shall extend from one end of the earth to the other. They shall not be lamented or gathered or buried. They shall be dung on the surface of the ground. Wail, you shepherds, and cry out, and roll in ashes, you lords of the flock. For the days of your slaughter and dispersion have come, and you shall fall like a choice vessel. No refuge will remain for the shepherds, nor escape for the lords of the flock. A voice, the cry of the shepherds, and the wail of the lords of the flock, for the Lord is laying waste their pasture, and the peaceful folds are devastated, because of the fierce anger of the Lord. Like a lion, he has left his lair, for their land has become a waste because of the sword of the oppressor and because of his fierce anger. Now Psalm 18. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. When I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me, and the snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him. Thick clouds dark with water, out of the brightness before him. Hailstones and coals of fire broke through his clouds. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice. Hailstones and coals of fire. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and flashed forth lightnings and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen, and the foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanness of my hands, he rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his rules were before me, and his statutes I did not put away from me. I was blameless before him. I kept myself from my guilt. So the Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. With the merciful, you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man, you show yourself blameless. With the purified, you show yourself pure. And with the crooked, like atheists, that kind of thing, you make yourself seem tortuous. For you save a humble people, but the haughty eyes, the proud people, you bring down. For it is you who light my lamp. The Lord, my God, lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. Why? Because when you jump over a wall, you don't know what's on the other side. But if you know God is there with you, that he's going to protect you and take care of you, you can jump over that wall. It doesn't matter because God is going to be the one to help you. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? The God who equipped me with strength and made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer and set me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation. At your right hand supported me, and your gentleness made me great. You gave a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. I pursued my enemies and overtook them, and did not turn back until they were consumed. I thrust them through so that they were not able to rise. They fell under my feet. For you equipped me with strength for the battle. You made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, and those who hated me I destroyed. They cried for help, but there was none to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them, fine as dust before the wind. I cast them out like the mire of the streets. You delivered me from strife with the people. You made me the head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners came cringing to me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of their fortresses. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation. The God who gave me vengeance and subdued peoples under me, who rescued me from my enemies. Yes, you exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from the man of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. Behold, the word of the Lord.